Hello, everyone, and welcome to this session. My name is James Elsmore. I'm the CEO of Island Innovation, and I'm delighted to be moderating this session today, an interview with Caroline Mahfood, who is the CEO of the GraceKennedy Foundation. Just before I invite Caroline up, I'm going to be asking you to fill out the poll that you now see on your screen, and also to go ahead and give you a quick introduction of who you are in the chat so we know where everyone is joining from and your connection to this project. While you're doing that, as you know, Island Innovation is a global network on island sustainability and a creative agency helping to advance innovation and drive sustainable change across islands worldwide. You can check out islandinnovation.co for more information about the various different projects that we are involved in. Great, I see people joining in the chat from Mali, from Uganda, from Niue, from different parts of the Caribbean. Please go ahead and write in the chat where you're joining us from Jamaica. Great. And actually, I see around half of those joining are doing so from the Caribbean and others from different parts of the world. About 50% also from the private sector and a third from NGOs, and also about half of you joining from environmental services and ocean conservation. St. Martin, Curacao, great to see the range of places joining. I think this conversation that we'll be having today will be very relevant to a lot of different island regions. Of course, the topic of plastics and ocean conservation has been very important. So I'll welcome our speaker to come onto the stage. And Caroline, it's really great to have you here. Thank you so much for taking the time with us. Maybe we can start off by just hearing a little bit more about the GraceKennedy Foundation, the type of work that you're doing. And you have a lot of different angles of different projects you're involved in, but we're specifically focusing on the environmental one. So if you want to go ahead with your presentation, you can do that, and there'll be time for questions afterwards.
Okay, great. And I just want to thank you again for having me here. I feel really honored and privileged. You guys are doing an amazing job, and I'm looking forward to sharing and hopefully inspiring others. So here we go.
Fantastic. Thank you for being here.
All right, hold on. Let's see, where are we at? Oh, 1 second. Let me stop sharing. Share. Let's do this again.
Looks good on my side.
Except it's not at the start, so I need to fix that. All right, 1 sec. I'll get it right. No. All right. There we go. Okay. So I just wanted to share a little bit about who we are, the GraceKennedy Foundation. We have been around for 40 years, and our mandate from an environmental perspective is how to foster research, innovation, and leadership to support sustainable, resilient solutions for Jamaica. As I mentioned, we're 40 years old this year, and long before the environmental sphere got sexy, we started funding a chair in environmental management from 1993, actually. So nearly 30 years ago. And coming out of the work of that chair at the time, Professor Elizabeth Thomas Hope, she was working around plastic bottle separation at source. So we actually started that at our companies in 2014. And to date, we've collected over 100,000 pounds of plastic just from staff members bringing it to work. We are the largest corporate collector for the International Coastal Cleanup Day activity that takes place annually, and we've been that for multiple years. This year alone, we actually hosted 2 events, and we collected 36,000 pounds, over 36,000 pounds of plastic and waste at those cleanups. Our company also is a 100-year-old company, and we're one of the largest food and beverage manufacturers in the Caribbean. And coming out of that role and what they've been doing there. They started setting up sustainability goals based on SDGs about 2 or 3 years ago, and that's been going great. And since then, we've now drafted an ESG policy, and the roadmap is being developed. So an environmental issues are important to us as a manufacturer and as a company. As I mentioned, the company is 100 years old, and we have been based downtown the entire time that we have been in existence. As you can see, the harbor is right in our backyard. And so we have really taken on the responsibility of trying to foster interest and a passion about restoring the harbor, because it is a beautiful harbor and it is severely polluted, and we really want to get it beautiful and pristine again. One of the other ways that we have been involved in environmental work is we've really tried to foster research and thought leadership. So that comes through the work of our chair, who the current chair is Professor Mona Webo, who is the mangrove guru for the Kingston Harbour and does amazing work there. But in addition to that, we have hosted a lecture series for 33 years, and we've looked at topics. The first lecture on the environment was in 1996. That resource is still available online on our website. Every lecture, we normally produce a book. We have done a lecture on the SDGs. We've done a lecture on why climate demands change, which is specifically looking at the impact of climate change on small island states. And then in 2019, we did a lecture on the Kingston Harbour, and that kind of fueled the work that we're doing now in the harbour. So why the Kingston Harbour? What is important about the Kingston Harbour? Well, basically, it is the 7th deepest natural harbour in the world, and it has a lot of ecological, economic, and social value. There are numerous species that are supported in the harbour. Thousands of people depend on the harbour, directly or indirectly. And 60,000 people actually live right in, around the harbour. And it is therefore a very, very vital part of our economy. We have about 9 fishing villages based on the harbour as well. So it is a critical area for our viability. What's the problem facing the harbour? Well, we have 19 gullies and 2 rivers that feed into the harbour. And as you can see, the pollution that flows into our harbour, which I think happens all over the Caribbean, is immense. It's a real issue. And then we see lumber and all of that kind of waste coming into the harbour, and it affects our port because our port is located there. So it is posing serious problems to the environment and to business, actually, to the economy. So coming out of that, we said, we need to get going with this project, with figuring out how we can do more in the Kingston Harbour. In 2018, the chairman of my board, Dr. Fred Kennedy, said, GraceKennedy, the harbor's in our backyard. We need to be thinking about what to do. And we were able to convene a meeting of all the key government agencies, the heads of the government agencies, to a meeting to talk about what we thought was our vision for the harbour. We then commissioned some research, a strategic plan to be developed by Mona Geoinformatics and MDK Consulting to figure out what role we could play in this process. And then coming out of that, my CEO said, well, you want to do work in the harbour, go find the money. So I said, I will. And I was able to pull together a group of NGOs, the Mona Geoinformatics, the Center for Marine Sciences, and Your Worlds Limited. We came together, applied for a grant from the Caribbean Biodiversity Fund, and we were awarded a 3-year grant valued at $990,000 US. And that program actually ends at the beginning of 2023. And it's been really, Mona Geoinformatics is a lead on it because the foundation had never gone after grant funding. So we definitely, one of the requirements was that you had managed grant funding in the past. So Mona Geoinformatics took on that role, and it's been a very, very successful project so far. Just to give you an idea of some of the milestones, We have, because this is an eco-based adaptation project, so it's really about mangrove restoration. That's the primary focus. So 3.62 hectares of mangrove forests have been planted in the Kingston Harbour, and this has been done through the Centre of Marine Sciences, which is led by Professor Mona Weber, who is our chair. So it's a nice synergy. 5,930 mangrove seedlings have been planted. We have seen 132 persons trained in audiovisual skills, as well as 48 persons getting full training. And the reason we focused on audiovisual skills is because we felt like they can tell the message. If they have those skills, they can get employment, as well as they can also tell the message more effectively about what is happening to our environment. And then we also trained 10 environmental wardens, particularly at one particular gully, which is a waterway leading into the harbour, Barnes Gully, to help to inform persons about not polluting, not throwing things into the gully. To date, over 700 persons have been educated in mangrove awareness, and we've seen the participation of 64 mangrove community members assisting with the project. And you'll see on top, we do presentations at all age groups. So we created 2 superheroes, Manny and Grove, and they go out and they talk to students about why, and young people about why we shouldn't pollute and why we shouldn't throw things into the gullies. Coming out of that, we got approached by the Ocean Cleanup to do a large project around reducing waste entering the harbour. And we've dubbed that project the Kingston Harbour Cleanup Project. And basically the mission is to come up with long-term solutions for the pollution in the Kingston Harbour. So the partners on the project, the funders are the Ocean Cleanup. And if you don't know who they are an NGO out of the Netherlands, and they're doing amazing work in the Pacific Ocean, trying to come up with solutions for stopping and collecting the waste that is entering the Pacific. And then coming out of that, they felt like, if we keep just collecting the Pacific, we're not going to solve the problem. We need to really target the 1,000 rivers that are the largest polluters. And even though we don't have a river that is the largest polluter, we have a harbor that produces a lot of waste. And so they were very excited to come here to Jamaica, and I'll tell you more about the project. The project was also funded through the Benioff Ocean Initiative as well. And on the ground is the foundation, the GraceKennedy Foundation, and our responsibility, we serve as project facilitators, we manage donor funds, we are also responsible for manual cleanups and for outreach. And that outreach is a combination of outreach to the business community as well as outreach to government agencies to get them on board, and then of course the general public. Now, the Ocean Cleanup looks at technology type solutions. That's what they want to test out. And they have brought on board a partner, Clean Harbours Jamaica, and they are responsible, they are the operators of the technology that we're using for this project. And I'll explain that to you more. So we've started off with 3 gullies, and then the goal is to expand to another 8 gullies over about a 2-3 year period. And it's not one solution. Ocean Cleanup is thinking through multiple solutions depending what the issues are for each gully, because it has been a very interesting learning process as we've been implementing this project. But just to give you an idea, the Ocean Cleanup has provided an interceptor tender boat, and that clips onto a barrier. We've put barriers up at the mouths of 3 gullies so far, as I mentioned. The waste is collected there, and then the waste is taken to an offloading site where the plastics are separated out and the actual garbage and waste is taken to our dump. And the Clean Harbours Jamaica team are responsible for all of that. And they're doing an amazing job. Like, I couldn't ask for a better partner on the ground. What are some of the challenges we've faced? Well, obviously the number one issue, which I think we all face everywhere in the Caribbean, is poor garbage collection. I call it the never-ending cleanup, because as soon as we clean up, more waste comes on the beaches, more waste comes down the gully, especially now in the rainy season. We've had issues with the gullies being blocked. As you can see the picture on the left, we have, they get stuck way above. And then we have the issue of the waste not flowing down to the barrier. If you notice in the picture on the right, the barrier is lovely and clean at the end, but the waste is all stuck in sludge above it. So that's been an issue. And then, of course, a lot of the waste is hazardous. They're crocodiles. You can't just put people in there to try and clean up the waste. So that's been definitely some of the challenges that we've faced. We've had tremendous support with this project. We've had tremendous support from the general public and tremendous support from the government. In the picture on the right, you'll see Senator Honorable Matthew Samuda, who is the minister responsible for environment within the office of the Prime Minister. And he comes out regularly to our beach cleanup activities. He brings his son and they get involved. He has been a great ally. We work very closely with him on the project to get his input and to get his support and buy-in. On the right-hand side is Honorable Minister Desmond McKenzie, who's the Minister of Local Government, who knows every inch of every gully. It's amazing. And he also has provided good support. And like I said, a number of agencies. So the land that we're on for our offloading site is provided by the Urban Development Corporation, and the National Works Agency, Land Agency. So there have just been multiple agencies. The Port Authority of Jamaica, we house a boat there. Sorry, my dog is in the room. We house a boat there. And we purchase gas through the Port Authority, which has helped alleviate. We used to have to go across the harbor to get the gas for the boat. So lots of partners on board. We're very grateful for them, and that's been a really encouraging thing about the project. So from a GraceKennedy Foundation perspective, we are, as I said, responsible for community outreach and the manual cleanup. So part of the way we've been doing outreach is to organize monthly volunteer cleanups at the beaches near the mouths of the gullies that we're targeting. It's been very encouraging to see persons come out, very discouraging to see as soon as we clean the beach, the waste comes back. But it's been good because the more people that come, the more they understand what the problems are, the more they can personally speak out about the problems. In addition to that, we've found that there's a lot of old waste on the beaches that we're cleaning up. So we've done what we call legacy waste cleanups, which is major intensive cleanups that are paid for. So now we can kind of get baseline data. Okay, this is just new waste coming on the beach. How are we doing? And we monitor that weekly, actually. And then we also have arranged site visits from the business community, because really we understand that the business community makes things happen. They move things along, and the more we can get local and international businesses involved, the more impact we're going to have. And that's why it's called the Kingston Harbour Cleanup Project, by the way. It's not the GraceKennedy Cleanup Project. It's the Harbour Project, because it is about Jamaica and about pulling in as many people as possible in coming up with the solutions. To date, we have collected the total plastic and waste removed from the harbour, just from our 3 gullies and the beach cleanups we've had, is of nearly 400,000 pounds of plastic and waste. It is depressing, but good that we've prevented this going into our harbour and into the Caribbean Sea. One of the things that we're doing with our offloading site, so on the picture on the left, you will see that is where the garbage comes in. Notice how pristine it is. That's what Clean Harbours Jamaica ensures happens at that location. It does not look like garbage comes there. It is spotless. But what we've decided to do is we really want it to become an interactive visitor center. So we are painting murals on the walls as we speak right now. And then what's exciting is that we've had a student, Nathaniel, a high school student, who grew mangroves at home. And we're now planting those. He's just planted mangroves at the offloading site as well, with the help of the Center of Marine Sciences, the Port Royal Marine Lab. And we're very excited to see, again, as a teaching tool for when we bring students and the business community and, start having tours at the location. We're excited that they'll see various things that can be happening in restoring our harbour. So that's a brief overview. I'm going to come back to James and we can have our chat.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Caroline. Super interesting. And I think I've seen some of these projects, but looking at taking plastic out of the ocean, but often they're not in a scale that's viable for small island developing states. And now, to be honest, the scale of Kingston is still larger than a lot of other parts of the Caribbean or other states, but still being able to do it on a more manageable scale that suits Caribbean nations, for example, I think is really interesting. And also congratulations on the coalition of organizations that you've brought together to make this happen. I mean, I understand there's a lot more to do, but still, I'm sure getting to this point is really really impressive. So congratulations for that. I guess with that in mind, I'm curious to know the type of support or the type of interest you're seeing from other parts of the region, and also how you have maybe involve, or if you haven't so far, you will look to involve the government and especially the tourism sector. And we know how important the tourism sector is. This seems pretty obvious that it's doing something good for that sector. Have you had inroads with those other areas so far?
Yes, we actually have. There are a lot of so, for example, our cement company is on the harbour, and that's an international, CEMEX, it's an international company, and they've shown some interest. They're very interested in seeing how they could use the waste produced by this project for their kiln instead of using coal. So there's potential for partnerships in that way. That we have been approached by other companies that are international companies that are interested in supporting the project. Just to kind of give you some context, and I think I speak fairly confidently about corporate foundations in the Caribbean. We are generally small. We don't have large amounts of money like a US foundation would. So we always have to go after partnerships if we want to do large projects. And so that's really important to us as well, to see which partners we can bring in. That connection with the cement company actually came through Raquel Moses with the Caribbean Climate Smart project. So, there are these connections that are happening. As far as the government agencies coming on board, the reality is the gullies are the responsibility of the municipality. It is not the responsibility of the project. We are simply capturing what comes to the mouth of the gully, to the end of the gully. But the government is responsible for garbage collection. The government is responsible for maintaining the gullies. So their partnership is very, very important. And we work very closely with them. We keep them in the loop because we know that it's important that we have their buy-in, their support, and that they feel their responsibility remains with them. So yeah, it's really important. But I don't think the project could have happened without the support of the government. We have been able to move at record speed because of their backing on the project. And as I mentioned, Minister Matthew Samuda has been fantastic in supporting us as well.
Fantastic. And I was really glad to hear or see the names of a couple of our partners, the Caribbean Biodiversity Fund, Caribbean Climate Smart Accelerator, Minister Samuda, people we've worked with in the past, and great to see that coalition coming together, because I think a lot of this conference is about how can we, share information and get islands across different parts to work together, but also try and get the private sector, academia, NGO, civil society, and of course the government to work together, because often you see each of those sectors doing their own thing and not necessarily talking together. And I think you've touched on all of those, which is really important. So what do the next steps look like, and I guess who are you looking to try and involve? You mentioned the cement, for example, as a use. I understand that there is a whole system here, and you're just tackling one part of it. So how does the future look?
Well, I mean, I personally think the timing is really, really perfect. It's right. People are getting it. People are understanding that we have to do something about the pollution and we have to do something about climate action. There's no question in my mind. And that's why I think the support has been so positive. The ocean cleanup is going after the funding that's needed. I know there's one gully called Sandy Gully, which produces 62% of the waste entering the harbor. And I'm not joking. I wish I'd shown a video. It's a beast. It's like it has islands inside of it. We have many islands inside of that gully. So we're going to have to come up with very unique solutions for that gully. And we are in discussions with a couple of international companies to see if they can get involved. I don't want to call names right now, but yeah, I think the scaling up process is going to require a lot more funding. And that's why we have been doing these site visits. So that's why we've been engaging the government, because there may be ways through the World Bank and other entities that they can come on board and also support it. And of course, at the end of the day, we have to figure out how to solve the problem upstream. So we're not perpetually dealing with the problem downstream. So that has to be part of the strategy as well going forward. But this project is specifically focused on downstream.
Absolutely. I actually was just thinking, I remember visiting Port Royal and walking along the coastline there. And obviously that's the other side of the harbour, but still seeing the amount of plastic, and this was a few years ago, must be growing every year. And for those of you who are not familiar in the audience, I mean, this is an incredibly beautiful area we're talking about. This is the whole of the Kingston Harbour area with the mountains in the background is really an area of outstanding beauty. Mm-hmm. You know, obviously having this urban area there is a huge contributor there. But it's very interesting that you have this complex nature of multiple rivers, multiple gullies, whereas most of the other ocean cleanup projects that I've seen have been focused on one large river, where there's a big barrier that goes right across that. Does that make a difference for the ocean cleanup? They are very excited about Jamaica. They're very excited about the opportunity to learn, because I'm not joking with you. Each gully is unique. I mean, it's mind-blowing to see how we have to be constantly thinking through different solutions. I mean, they're not now, you know, as we scale up, they're looking at the fact that maybe not everything will be done via the sea. Is there land-based solutions that we need to develop to figure out how to best, you know, contain the garbage. So they're very, very excited about the potential of learning and testing technology here in Jamaica, and then seeing how they can duplicate it elsewhere. Absolutely. And just a reminder to the audience, we'll be wrapping up soon, but if you do have any questions, please put them in the Q&A box. I'll be happy to ask in the few minutes we have left. There's a couple of questions that have come in, and I'm going to combine them into one. The first is specifically asking about the organizations, and I know you've mentioned there's a question here about the Commonwealth organizations, if there's any connections there or any marine foundations. And then the second part is also asking about the opportunity to replicate this in other Caribbean islands. So I'll let you tackle that all together, because it's a question about partnerships and expansion. Okay. Yes. Well, first of all, the Benioff Foundation is involved. So they're the main funder. We haven't gone after, it's really the ocean cleanup that's going to be going after some of that kind of funding. And we will assist, obviously. But yes, I think that's the plan. I know Coca-Cola is a big funder of the ocean cleanup. So, but as far as your second question was, I went blank. Sorry, was about the opportunities to replicate other islands. I don't know if you're at that point just yet. So we're not at that point, but to be very honest with you, that's always been our vision. And I'm pretty sure that's the ocean cleanup's vision, right? They want to be able to, what they're learning here, they want to be able to figure out how to duplicate elsewhere. But in my mind, from a Caribbean perspective and from an island perspective,
that is my dream. I want what we're doing here to be a way of us learning how to implement it in other harbors and other islands across the Caribbean, because we're all faced with serious pollution issues and we need the solutions. And the good thing is the solutions we're coming up with are not just containing. We're coming up with solutions for how else can we use the waste? Can the waste be used in different ways, that it's not just the plastic isn't just being baled and shipped to another country? Is there a way to use the waste effectively so the whole circular economy issue is being addressed as well through this project. So yeah, I am really hoping that the learnings can be duplicated elsewhere.
Absolutely. There's so many components to this plastics issue. Prevention, you mentioned the opportunities for the municipality and garbage cleanup to be improved as a source, but also the opportunity of, okay, what do you do once you've collected this waste? And I know for islands smaller than Jamaica, that itself will present its own problem. We've seen a different issue, but in many ways replicated with sargassum in the Eastern Caribbean, of the collection of that. Okay, but then what do you do with that? But all things that I've seen this week, people working on. We actually had a circular economy conversation earlier on today that addressed some of these very issues, and I can see lots of comments coming in agreeing with this and the opportunities for replication. Caroline, that was really, really an interesting session. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm really looking forward to following how this project adapts and evolves, and hopefully springing up in other islands as the technology improves. Really, really interesting.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited, and congrats again on the work that you guys are doing. It's phenomenal.
I appreciate it. I'll just mention to all of our audience that we do have another session coming up in about 3 hours, 10 p.m. My time in Europe, or 5 p.m. New York Eastern time. That session is very relevant, actually, sponsored by the government of Vanuatu and the Stop Ecocide Foundation, looking at this idea of ecocide to actually make governments held to account for addressing ecosystem damage and ecosystem prevention. So coming at it from a legal angle from the International Court, and we have some really interesting speakers. So if this topic is of interest to you, you might want to join us in a few hours. You'll see some information there in the chat. Thank you, Christian. We'll leave it there. Thanks so much again, Caroline. Really interesting, and have a wonderful day, and we'll be in touch. Bye-bye.
Bye.